Hi everyone and welcome to our webinar tonight. We're going to be talking about nutrition and healthy lifestyle. This is brought to you by the Immunodeficiency Foundation. We are a peak body organisation representing people with primary and secondary immune deficiency. We recognise the importance of having a healthy lifestyle, and so tonight I'd like to introduce Kate Patocchio, who is an accredited practicing dietitian, a sports dietitian and an exercise physiologist. Kay is going to present a webinar tonight around nutrition, and there'll be opportunities for you to ask questions. So if during the presentation you do have questions, pop those in the Q&A, and at the end of Kate's presentation, we'll come back to those questions and answer those for you. So before we start, I'd like to recognise the traditional owners of the land and the traditional people that we come to you from. Kate has worked with IDFA previously, and I would like to introduce Kate and thank her for the presentation. And also I'll hand over to Kate to continue with the presentation now. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody, good evening. Thank you so much for logging in this evening to listen to the webinar on nutrition and healthy lifestyle. So as Caroline mentioned, I have delivered a presentation previously to the Immunodeficiencies Foundation. So hello to those of you who might have seen me in the past, and welcome to everyone who's new logging in tonight. I'll just pop up the content. So these are the things that I'm going to run through this evening. A little disclaimer before I get started. Look, I am not an expert in PID or primary immunodeficiencies. However, I have a fair bit of experience in healthy lifestyle management. So I work with primarily with Diabetes Australia, and I have done so for the last 6 years. As both a dietitian and exercise physiologist. So when I was putting together this presentation, I did a whole bunch of research, spoke with dietitians who work in immune health, watched a bunch of other webinars and other types of things, looked at the evidence in respect to things like immune health to put together the content for this presentation. So I've tried to adapt it as much as I can to PID in a broad sense where possible. Towards the end, if there is time, I've got a little practical activity that we'll do around food label reading. So if you have got what we might need for that towards the end of the presentation is if you've got like a food package that you've just got in your cupboard that you'd like to learn how to read the nutrition label for, we'll be doing that towards the end. And I know that's actually not on the contents. So we'll look forward to doing that. Okay, so nutrition, immunity, and PID. So I suppose when you first research things like, nutrition and immune health, often the first things that pop up, say on Google or in the media, are articles that say things like, eat one of these 5 amazing immune boosting foods, and that's going to boost your immunity. And I suppose it's important to understand that there is no real strong evidence that shows that you could eat one thing, for example, I don't know, garlic or something along those lines, chicken soup, for example, one food that is going to immediately boost your immunity and stop you from getting sick. The immune system, is supported and strengthened by a combination of different factors, of which nutrition is really only one of those. So obviously nutrition, if you think of it like the wheel of a bike that has a number of different spokes, nutrition might only be one of those spokes. Other important factors in lifestyle include sleep, and we're really starting to get a greater understanding of that as well. Stress. So stress can play a role in particular on things like the bacteria levels in our gut, and also physical activity as well. So eating one or more of, a certain single food alone is unlikely to provide you with any benefit in terms of immune health if there are other areas of lifestyle that are lacking. Further to that, a lot of the research that I looked at in terms of immunity, or the things that do exist, is all really focused around the area of the prevention and treatment of things like colds and flus, but not really any other type of illnesses or chronic diseases. Again, just reiterating that this whole idea of nutrition and boosting immunity is a little bit oversimplified. However, when we think about nutrition, good nutrition, as much as it won't, say, boost your immunity and potentially stop you from picking things up, what it can do is optimize your overall nutritional status. And so your nutritional status is sort of like saying how healthy your body is. And it can help to provide key nutrients that do support immune health and immune function. And I'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide. So when I say nutritional status, what you're looking at there, you've got a little graph thing, is the balance basically of all of the nutrients that your body needs. Whoops, wrong slide. Sorry about all of the nutrients that your body needs to basically grow healthy cells, support the growth of any tissue or cell in the body, produce antibodies, as well as provide energy for daily activities as well. So while good nutrition is important for everybody, it's especially important for somebody that may have PID. A lack of adequate nutrition can predispose people to developing a lot of different illnesses and infections for which somebody who has primary immunodeficiency is already susceptible. So malnutrition, or a diet that's lacking in one or more of the key nutrients, can impair the production and activity of immune cells and antibodies. A deficiency of single nutrients can alter the body's immune response. So animal studies have shown that deficiencies in zinc, selenium, iron, copper, folic acid, and vitamins A, B6, C, D, and E can all alter the body's immune response. So what can good dietary habits do then for somebody with PID? In terms of increasing nutritional status, which is the balance between the intake of nutrients, so things like energy, carbs, protein, fats, vitamins, and minerals, versus the expenditure of those nutrients for the processes of growth, reproduction, and the maintenance of health. So put simply, the energy and nutrients that you need to be a healthy weight and go about your daily activities, build and repair tissues like skin, bones, muscles, as well as blood cells. And that includes immune cells, so things like red and white immune cells, hormones, and platelets. So if you've got an optimal nutritional status, what that means is that you could, if you are sick, not only could you reduce the duration of that illness and enhance your recovery, but also reduce the severity of that illness as well. So when you are sick, your body is coping better with that illness. Whether or not you can prevent illness with nutrition alone for primary immunodeficiency, really unsure, and there's minimal research on this particular topic. As said previously, the combination of a good diet, physical activity, good sleep, and low stress levels is truly what's thought to boost immunity and prevent illness. So now what I'm going to do is just really quickly go through some of the key nutrients involved in supporting the immune system. On the slides, there's a bit of information about what role it plays in and the types of parts of the immune system that these nutrients support. as well as on the right-hand side of the slide, all of the major food sources of those nutrients. So the first one is zinc. Zinc plays a huge part in a range of different immunity mediators, so things like enzymes, peptides, cytokines, and it plays a key role in the regulation of lymphoid cell activation, proliferation, and apoptosis. So lymphoid cells include cells like natural killer cells, T cells, and B cells, which work to eliminate pathogens, so bacteria, viruses, and abnormal cells. So the richest food sources of zinc include a lot of our meats and alternatives, so particularly rich in foods like oysters, red meats, poultry, shellfish, legumes, and nuts. So secondly, we've got vitamin C, which is a potent antioxidant. So it contributes to immune defense by supporting various cellular functions in the immune system. So it helps to protect our skin, which is a major barrier for pathogens. It also accumulates in cells that sort of gobble up viruses and infections in the body. So it sort of like clears the rubbish up. It also enhances the production of B and T cells, and deficiency in vitamin C results in impaired immunity and higher susceptibility to infections. So the richest food sources of vitamin C, we all know about oranges and orange juice. So any sort of citrus product, capsicum, kiwi fruits, berries, broccoli and cauliflower, leafy greens, potatoes and tomatoes. So it's really widespread, in particular in our plant-based foods. Okay, a couple of fat-soluble vitamins coming up. So vitamin D followed by vitamin E. Vitamin D is specifically involved in the activation of T cells, which are part of the immune system that focuses on specific foreign particles. So rather than generically attacking anything, T cells circulate until they encounter a specific antigen that comes into the body. So they play a critical role in immunity to foreign substances within the body. So vitamin D deficiency has been linked with autoimmune problems and an increased susceptibility to infection. Now, we get a lot of our vitamin D from sunlight. So going out in the sun for a certain amount of time in the day, depending on your skin colour, activates vitamin D underneath the skin. However, there are some foods, particularly fortified foods, so some dairy products, orange juices and cereals that are fortified with vitamin D. And you'll also find it in kind of like fatty foods, so the yolk of an egg, fatty fish, so things like tuna and mackerel and salmon. So another fat-soluble vitamin that is an antioxidant is vitamin E. So it also has a very similar role to vitamin D. It's associated with the T cell functions, so cells that attack and destroy foreign antigens that come into the body. Deficiency in vitamin E has been shown to impair the normal immune function of the body, and which can be corrected by vitamin E repletion. So similar to your vitamin D, you find it in fatty foods. In this circumstance, we're looking at mostly our nuts and seeds. So in particular, sunflower seeds, almonds, peanuts and peanut butter, and then things like avocado. So again, another quite fatty food, as well as in a few other different vegetables as well. So beet greens, pumpkin, red capsicum, asparagus and mangoes. Okay, selenium, another antioxidant. So it plays a role in lowering oxidative stress in the body. So we're looking at inflammation within the body, which enhances immunity. So studies have demonstrated that people who have elevated or increased blood levels of selenium have an enhanced immune response. Whereas on the other hand, deficiency has been shown to have harm immune cell function and also lead to a slower immune response. So the richest food sources of selenium, again, are in our meats and alternatives group. So beans, eggs, fish and shellfish, poultry and meats. Iron. So experimental evidence in the last decades show that iron is a fundamental element for normal development of the immune system. The role of iron in immunity is that it's necessary for immune cells to proliferate, so to grow, mature, and then split up and create more cells in response to a specific infection. So the body has an ability to increase the amount of iron that you absorb. So when, for example, if you did have something going on immune-wise in the body, your body has the ability to absorb more iron so that it can actually do that, so that the lymphocytes can actually grow and mature and proliferate to fight that infection. So in terms of where you find iron, so again, a lot of the meats and alternatives group, as well as dark leafy green vegetables. So liver and brains are very, very rich sources of it. However, red meat would be a secondary rich source, fish and shellfish, poultry, legumes, tofu, nuts, a number of different fortified cereals. So, for example, the Uncle Toby's Plus Iron, Wheat Bix, and certain breads have been fortified with iron. And then you've got your really dark leafy green vegetables like kale and spinach. Okay, so talk now, they were kind of like the key nutrients that are involved in the immune response. Now we're going to just move on to talking a little bit about the role of the gut. So the gut is one of the places basically where the immune system meets a lot of foreign objects. So not just food and nutrients, but some non-food items, but bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. So it's no surprise that the gut is actually one of, or considered to be one of the main places where your immune system resides. Gut bacteria are integral in making the immune work. So we know that gut bacteria are essential for our immune system to be working properly. So our intestines are, when you think about the actual size of it, is our largest single immune organ in the body. Certain bacteria or the nutritional components they produce have been shown to interact with immune cells and affect how the immune system works. So they're called short-chain fatty acids. So they are some of the nutritional components that are produced by certain bacteria in the gut. And they are produced through the fermentation of indigestible fibres. One of the roles of these short-chain fatty acids is to reduce inflammation, and that helps to protect the gut lining, and it makes sure that the gut immune cells can produce the right immune factors and prevent infections. Certain bacteria can reduce the effectiveness of digestive enzymes that are released from cells that line the gut. And bacteria also help to keep the gut lining healthy and the gut barrier working and functioning properly. So if there's been a breach of the barrier of the gut, which is what this picture is showing here, so you've got a healthy looking gut cells on the left, and then damaged or leaky gut cells here on the right. So a leaky gut is just a layperson's term that's given for the increasing permeability, or I suppose gaps in the gut, increasing permeability of the gut lining. And that is through a reduction in the mucus layer that lines in between the actual intestine and the lining of the gut. So a leaky gut is thought to allow bacteria and other nutrients into the bloodstream where they shouldn't be. And this may trigger an increased inflammation and immune response. So the results of a leaky gut can be one of the causes behind of autoimmune diseases like IBD, celiac disease, allergies, asthma, and also type 1 diabetes. So a healthy gut is crucial in protecting against autoimmune diseases, which we now know can be triggered by bacterial toxins and viruses that end up passing in through the gut wall. So we'll talk now a little bit about how you can have a really healthy gut that's full of super healthy gut bacteria. So first of all, eating more fibre. So I spoke about the indigestible fibres that reach the end of the large gut. So they produce these really important things called short-chain fatty acids, which then can reduce inflammation and help the lining of the gut stay really healthy. So one of the main short-chain fatty acids produced is acetate, which is produced by the gut bacteria after digesting the fibres that are found in fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains. Another one, butyrate, is another short-chain fatty acid, and it reduces inflammation and improves the movement of food through the gut, and it may also help to protect against colon cancer. Secondly, so trying fermented foods. So fermented foods are a really easy way to increase the beneficial bacteria in your gut. So some examples of fermented foods are kombucha, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, and just regular Greek yogurt that has the live bacteria in it. These have been shown to help reduce inflammation and help to improve gut bacteria growth. Number 3, so choosing alcohol carefully. So alcohol can increase the growth of certain bacteria that potentially cause an increase in toxins in the gut. So it helps sort of kills out the good bacteria. Alcohol can also increase the likelihood of a leaky gut and inflammation. And we know that spirits might do more gut damage than, say, wine or beer. And the amount and frequency of alcohol intake definitely plays a part in the amount of gut damage that's done. So as minimal frequency as possible, and also in terms of the amount, so sticking to within what the National Alcohol Guidelines suggest, which is just been reduced in the last year to no more than 10 standard drinks in a week. So managing stress, number 4. So not only does stress influence your gut bacteria, growing more of certain types of bacteria, it's been linked to a higher risk of experiencing anxiety and depression. So managing your stress can be one step towards improving your gut health and immunity. Although no studies yet have looked at the impact of stress management on changes in gut bacteria growth, yoga itself has been shown to be as effective as a low FODMAP diet on the symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome. So for people that do experience IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, which is sort of characterized by significant bloating, pain, alternating constipation and diarrhea, those types of symptoms, a low FODMAP diet is a diet that is prescribed for that. But we now know that simply just by reducing stress, for example, through practicing yoga, mindfulness, meditation, it actually does just as good a job at minimizing those symptoms as a low FODMAP diet. Okay, the fat in a Western diet. A high-fat Western-style diet reduces a particular bacteria, which has got a really long name. I'm not going to try and say it. A bacteria which plays a part in reducing inflammation in the immune system, the microbiome. So in mice who have a very similar gut profile to humans, a high-fat diet has also been implicated in causing a leaky gut as well. So just minding the quantity of fat in the diet and also the types of fat. Finally, around additives, so foods that contain a lot of emulsifiers. So emulsifiers are additives that are added to different foods or different ingredients to help them have a stable sort of consistency. Usually sort of liquids that sort of to help them stay together and not separate. So say, for example, combining vinegar and eggs with oil to make mayonnaise. Sometimes chemicals are used, emulsifiers, to help sort of stabilize those types of products. And these sorts of additives have been shown to increase the permeability or that leaky gut. So choosing whole foods as much as possible and avoiding packet-based foods as much as possible will help to reduce your intake of emulsifiers. And then making omega-3 a regular part of your diet. So regular omega-3 fats that comes from fish have been shown to be great for our gut bacteria. They're also really anti-inflammatory and they're well known to prevent heart disease and ease the pain of osteoarthritis. So omega-3 also works to reduce inflammation in the gut by encouraging or discouraging the growth of certain types of gut bacteria. Artificial sweeteners, I'll just mention as well. So artificial sweeteners such as mannitol and sorbitol are known to change gut bacteria. So for people who are following a low FODMAP diet with IBS, these sorts of sweeteners are in a group called the polyol group and can increase symptoms in people that are sensitive to them. So you'll find mannitol and sorbitol in products that are generally sugar-free foods, so things like your diet soft drinks, diet jellies, those sorts of things, or no added sugar but has artificial sweeteners in them. There are a variety of those. So artificial sweeteners again have been shown to alter gut bacteria or the types of bugs, the good bugs that are found in the gut. So antibiotic use, and this is something that may or may not be relevant to you. However, if you've got infections and are on antibiotics for long periods of time or are frequent users of antibiotics, we know that they do have a negative effect on the gut microbiome. Because in addition to killing the bacteria they're supposed to be killing, they also end up killing a lot of the healthy bacteria as well. So taking too many antibiotics can drastically change the amounts and the types of bacteria found in the gut, especially early in life. So we know that only 1 week of antibiotics can change the makeup of the gut microbiota for up to a year after taking them. So some studies have shown that changes to the gut microbiota caused by excessive antibiotic use early in life may even increase the risk of weight gain and obesity later in life. And overuse can lead to antibiotic resistance, making them ineffective at killing all of the bacteria that they're supposed to kill. So changing the types of what it does is change the types of bacteria living in the intestines. They can cause intestinal side effects, including diarrhea. So taking probiotics, which are healthy live bacteria, both during and after antibiotic use, can help to restore some of the gut bacteria that's been killed. So we'll have a look at what probiotic foods are. So these are some of those fermented foods that I mentioned earlier. So you can get those really simply just by having, a good quality plain Greek yogurt that has the live bacteria in there, or perhaps trying some of the fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha tea, kefir, certain types of pickles, and pickled vegetables. I suppose it's just important, I guess, to note that it's probably best to take these away from the antibiotics, so you wouldn't be wanting to have them at exactly the same time when you eat them, because you'll find that the antibiotics will kill the bacteria that you've just put in from the food. But they can help to restore some of the good bacteria that's been killed through the use of antibiotics. So prebiotics, on the other hand, these are generally foods that are types of carbohydrates that are high in fibre, that are indigestible parts of that plant food. So the prebiotic foods, so say, for example, legumes, oats, bananas, asparagus, those sort of really stringy foods in general, our gut can't digest these foods, so they end up moving on into the large bowel, and they sort of help to feed our beneficial bacteria. So by turning it into those short chain fatty acids that I was talking about earlier. So the short chain fatty acids promote a strong gut barrier that help to keep out harmful substances, viruses, and bacteria. So the fibre that you get from these prebiotic foods makes its way down into the large bowel undigested, and your good bacteria that are found in that part of your gut feed on it and help with keeping that gut lining together and not leaky. So how do we get, putting all of this together, how do we make sure that we've got a really healthy gut without having to go out and buy a whole bunch of fermented foods or expensive superfoods, which is really not necessary? What we do know is from the research that people who follow a Mediterranean style diet generally have the Mediterranean style diet is linked with a healthier gut microbiota or healthier gut bacteria. It's also been shown to have lower levels of inflammatory markers in the stools of people that follow a Mediterranean diet. So what is a Mediterranean diet? It's basically a diet that's very rich in fruits and vegetables, legumes, grains, nuts, and fish. So a very high plant-based diet, smaller amounts of meats, and very, very small amounts of overly processed foods, rich in olive oil, lots of, herbs and spices, those sorts of things in the diet. Just to touch on medicinal remedies, so things like garlic, echinacea, olive leaf extract, and chicken soup. So in terms of what they do, there are some small studies that, and animal-based studies that show that these particular foods can have a positive effect in, the severity and duration, particularly of things like colds and flus. However, again, I suppose just going back right to the beginning, these foods by themselves are unlikely to have a major impact if a whole bunch of other areas of lifestyle management are lacking. So again, thinking about sleep, thinking about the overall healthiness of the diet or the variety in the diet, physical activity, and also stress. So just by having, say, an echinacea supplement by itself, is it going to really do anything? Maybe, maybe not. It's always good to trial these things, and if you find that you are getting a benefit, that's great. However, the overall evidence for their use in larger scale sort of placebo-controlled trials are very small. So where can you start with trying to figure out what a healthy diet is? So we do have the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating. It's currently under review, and I'd say we'll be getting a very new version of this sometime in the next year or so. This is based on the available scientific evidence and research at the time it was put together. And it recommends the amount of food to eat and the types of food to eat for different ages and genders, and kind of splits it up into foods that are recommended to eat every day and other foods to include only sometimes. So you can access all of that information at the eatforhealth.gov.au website, where you can put in your age and gender, your physical activity level, and those sorts of things, and it will spit out to you what is recommended for you. In general, though, what is recommended is 5 to 6 servings of vegetables per day, where a serving is about a cup of salad vegetables or half a cup of your other types of veggies. 2 pieces of fruit, pretty much for everybody. High fibre whole grain foods, so that's your breads, cereals, rice, pasta, noodles and whole grains. So somewhere between 3 and 6 servings of those a day, depending on your age and gender. Lean meats and alternatives, so 2 to 3 servings of those a day, which would be roughly equivalent to, if you were thinking of meat, about 150 grams-ish of meat or fish or chicken for most people. Reduced fat dairy foods, so milk, yogurt and cheese, somewhere between 2 to 4 servings of those a day, depending on your age and gender. Lots of unsaturated fats, so thinking olive oils, olive oil cooking sprays, olive oil margarines, and limiting discretionary choices. So discretionary choices would be things like your cakes, biscuits, chocolate, lollies, alcohol, pastries and takeaway foods, to less than 2 per day. And there are portion sizes and for each of all of those servings on that Eat for Health website there. So making it happen. How can you make healthy eating happen easily? So doing lots of planning. So planning ahead for a few days or for a week. Try to plan meals that include a lot of vegetables. So if you think about a meal as being half vegetables, a quarter protein foods, and a quarter carbohydrate-based foods. So, for example, stir fries, things like soups that include vegetables, salads, frittatas that include vegetables, sandwiches, wraps, and rolls that include a lot of salad. So eating fruit as a snack, or having fruit on top of yogurt or cereals, for example. Having vegetable sticks or vegetables prepared and cut up, and so that they're the first thing that you see when you open the fridge. In general, you always go for the easiest option when you're hungry. If you open the cupboard or the fridge and the first thing you see is biscuits or chocolate or chips, you're more than likely to eat those sorts of foods. Whereas if you've got a cupboard or a fridge where you open it up and you've got carrots, chopped up fruit, dried fruit, whole grain crisp breads, healthier options are your first things that you see. You're more likely to eat those foods. So other ways to get more fruits and veggies, so trying things like smoothies or smoothie bowls as main meals, so whether that be for breakfast or perhaps snacks. Soups and salads for lunch, so vegetable-based soups or salads as lunch options. And also keep your freezer stocked and pantry stocked with frozen and canned veggies. So there's no loss in nutrition from using frozen or canned vegetables. They can be a really easy and convenient option that that can last in the fridge or the freezer for an extended period of time. This is just a little meal plan that I put together that includes a lot of the foods that we've talked about so far. So an example of a way to get a whole bunch of fibre and resistant starch in your breakfast would be to have some whole grain rolled oats. So not the little sachets of oats, the actual rolled oats that are still in their intact form, with banana and a spoonful of a probiotic yogurt, so yogurt that's got a large portion of the healthy bacteria in it. So a seeded sourdough sandwich that's got some salmon, salad, some mixed beans, and a tablespoon of some kimchi or sauerkraut to get some probiotics, and some extra virgin olive oil is the EVOO. Dinner time, a stir fry with lots of mixed vegetables, brown rice and tofu or another type of protein, and then lots of garlic, ginger and chili. And healthy snacks that are very high in fibre include fruits, mixed unsalted nuts, veggie sticks with hummus, and then a tub of probiotic yogurt. So you're sort of combining a whole bunch of those gut-friendly foods, lots and lots of fruits and vegetables like the Mediterranean diet, as well as some extra virgin olive oil as well. Now, do you need to supplement? So in terms of what we know, so animal studies have found that if you've got a deficiency in any of the nutrients up here, so zinc, selenium, iron, copper, folic acid, vitamins A, B6, C, D and E, that can alter your immune system response. We also know that people who are poorly nourished tend to be at greater risk of things like bacterial, viral and other infections. So if you have a really good quality diet, so you're ticking off all of those food groups as per the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating every day, the idea of that, getting that variety of foods from all those groups, is that you should be actually providing your body with all of the vitamins and minerals that it does need to stay healthy. So you shouldn't need to supplement, provided you are getting a healthy, balanced diet. However, there's populations of people and people that have issues around different foods that perhaps can't get that balance right. And if that is the case, that you can't eat enough for various reasons, or you can't get a variety of foods from those food groups, then it may be that a supplement would be necessary for you. And a dietitian would be able to assess that quite simply by talking to you about the types of foods that you can and can't eat, and then recommending what sort of nutrients may be missing from your diet. So at-risk groups tend to be the elderly and also pregnant women, or people that have different kinds of changes in their nutritional requirements, people that have perhaps issues with absorption of different nutrients in the gut as well, that may need, extra supplementation. Okay, what to avoid? So the main types of foods to avoid would be ultra-processed foods. So that would be snacks, drinks, and ready meals that are created by ingredients that are things that are not actually real food. So they're products that are created mostly entirely from substances that are extracted from food, but it doesn't resemble what that food once was when it was the original ingredient. How do we know what they are? Lots of ways to spot them. Generally, they live in the middle of the supermarket. They've got a very, 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 very long shelf life. They'll have a long ingredients list, and some of the ingredients that are in those products will be unrecognisable or very difficult to read. and they may contain a lot of artificial colours, additives or preservatives. So why do we need to avoid these really ultra processed foods? In general, they tend to be foods that are lower in fibre, so they're not going to be feeding the gut microbiota. They might be higher in things like saturated fat, salt and sugar, which lead to overall inflammation within the body. They're low in vitamins and minerals, so they're not things that are going to be supporting immune health, and they generally take the place of other more nutritious foods in the diet. They can promote disturbances in healthy intestinal microorganisms, resulting in inflammation and therefore suppressing immunity. So thinking like cheese puffs, types of chips, lots of, lollies, biscuits, the cakes that sort of sit on the shelf for a really long period of time. Other things that would, for people with primary immunodeficiency, is really, thinking about where you're getting food from and what it's, I suppose how you're getting your food. So high risk environments and high risk foods for things that would contain microorganisms. So say, for example, buffets. I know there's not as many of those around anymore, and probably for good reason, but they're going to be breeding grounds for bacteria. So for somebody with an immune problem, it's a very high risk environment. Pre-packaged salads and sandwiches. So think like the salad mix bags that you get from the supermarkets. Perhaps say you're at the airport and there's like a pre-packaged sandwiches and pre-packaged salads, those sorts of foods, those fresh sorts of foods that perhaps potentially are sitting somewhere for a really long period of time, tend to be more high risk foods when it comes to food poisoning. Meal delivery kits. So in terms of having ingredients delivered to your door, how do you know that they're being kept at the right temperature for the right amount of time? I know that a lot of them come in those styrofoam tubs, but they are just in general a more high risk type of food when you haven't been able to control the length of time that something has been sitting out of, say, a cool room, for example. So just making sure that, say, if you do get, say, salad mixes and things like that, that you are washing, the salad before eating it. Washing your fruits and vegetables that you're taking from the, from the fruit and veggie store as much as possible. And just being, really vigilant around choosing establishments to buy takeaway food from, knowing that the temperature of that food is being either kept cold if it needs to be kept cold, or above the recommended temperature for hot food. So this is a little bit of stuff around food safety. So for people with PID, definitely food safety would be a really big thing to be aware of. So washing your hands correctly, storing food safely, so outside of that danger zone of 5 to 60 degrees where bacteria can grow. Washing utensils, making sure your kitchen equipment is kept really clean. So cook and cool food safely. Don't leave things out on the bench to thaw, that sort of thing. So limiting your exposure to potentially harmful bacteria. And I suppose putting all of this together, as mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, having good nutrition alone is unlikely to lead to improved immune function if there are other aspects of your lifestyle that are lacking. So a combination of good diet, adequate sleep, exercise and stress management, and a moderate alcohol intake also play a role. So in terms of sleep, so most adults generally need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, and for younger people, so children, more than that, possibly somewhere between 8 and 12 hours of sleep a night. So practicing good sleep hygiene, not having, devices and things like that in bedrooms, trying to establish a fairly good routine with going to bed. So going to bed at similar times, waking up at similar times can all help with improving that sleep. Okay, practical activity. Before we're finishing up, how am I going with time? All right, get going, Kate. This is nearly finished. So if you have got a food label that you can read off, or if you want to spend a couple of minutes now, just run off and grab something from your cupboard. And we'll go through what sorts of things to look for reading a food label. So in terms of just looking at the label itself, you might find that the food label will contain a whole bunch of different claims on it. So it might be 99% fat-free or no added sugar, high in fibre, high in protein, all of that sort of stuff. So they are some things that you can look at to assess whether something is going to be healthy for you. Some ones to kind of be aware of that are a little bit misleading could be light. So sometimes the word light, and it's often written as L-I-T-E, can just be referring to the colour of the food item, not anything to do with its nutritional value. So just be aware that of those sorts of claims that you're looking at. I think a couple of things that have come out in the last few years have been the health star rating. So in terms of what to look for and what is a good health star rating, in order to fit the criteria that I'm using for the nutrition information panel here, generally foods would need to be ticking off a 4.5 to 5 out of 5 to meet what is considered to be a healthy nutritional profile of a product. So obviously the more stars the better, but a 4.5 to 5 star is a really top choice in terms of products. The ingredients list is another area that you can find some information about what's in that food. As I mentioned previously, you want to have a small ingredients list if possible, as little big long words that you can't say in that, which are usually the food additives. The ingredients list can kind of give you an idea of whether something has a lot of, say, sugar or fat in it. So it's ordered by the thing that is in the product the most. So the first ingredient that's listed is the largest component of that product, and it sort of goes along towards the end being the smallest. So if the top 3 ingredients contain something that is like another word for sugar or another word for fat or another word for salt, you can probably guarantee that that product is going to be something that's high in sugar or fat or salt. Having an idea of what to look for in the nutrition information panel will give you a good idea of, is a sort of like a good skill to learn, so that when you go to the supermarket, you'll always have an idea of whether something fits into a healthy criteria or not. So what to look for? Now, when you're comparing a couple of different products, it's always useful to use the far right-hand column, so which is the per 100 grams. So that allows you to compare 100 grams of one food or one yogurt, for example, with 100 grams of another yogurt. So it's always useful to use those, that per 100 grams. And per 100 grams, healthier foods contain less than 3 grams of saturated fat per 100 grams. We have pretty strict laws around trans fats in Australia. Ideally, the products should contain no trans fats, okay, or if they do, it's very, 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 very minimal. In terms of sugar, so sugar down the list, less than 5 grams of sugar is a fairly low sugar food per 100 grams. However, if that product has dried fruit in it, so say, for example, you've got a muesli, a natural muesli, or you've got possibly a muesli bar. What else? Dried fruit itself. So if you were buying a bag of dried fruit, you'll never get the sugar to be under 5 grams. So the sugar, on a food label is referring to the natural sugar that is present within that product. So natural sugars are found in your fruits, so regular fruit, dried fruit, canned fruits, as well as dairy foods as well. So dairy foods like milk and yogurt contain natural sugar in it as well, plus whatever sugar has been added to the product by the manufacturer. So it's all lumped into the same number. In terms of sodium or salt, underneath 400 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams is considered to be a moderate salt product. A low salt product would be under 120 milligrams, but you'll find that with things like breads and cereals that it's very tricky to get them underneath the 120 milligrams of sodium. So with your breads and cereals, cracker biscuits, snack foods like that, snack foods that come in packets, underneath 400 is considered to be a fairly reasonable target. And in terms of fibre, more than 5 grams of fibre per 100 grams, and obviously try and choose the product that has the most fibre in it where possible. So remember, the fibre is important for our gut microbiome, or the bacteria that's found in our gut. Also helps to keep you feeling full as well. So the more of that in the product, the better. Okay, so key points. Good nutrition is one of many factors that affect immunity, along with sleep, stress management, exercise, and moderating alcohol intake. So good nutrition won't necessarily stop you from getting sick, but it will help to support immune function. It optimizes your nutritional status, meaning that illness can be less severe and of lesser duration. A healthy, balanced diet that's in line with the Guide to Healthy Eating and Mediterranean-style diet, along with gut bacteria promoting foods and minimally processed foods, is well suited to people living with PID without the need to supplement. And people living with PID need to pay extra attention to food safety guidelines to prevent foodborne illnesses. So for further support, if you did want to see a dietitian, you can go to the Dietitians Australia webpage, and they've got a Find a Dietitian link there. If you were looking for an exercise physiologist, the ESSA.org is where you would find an accredited exercise physiologist that is local to you. What sort of things can we help with? So definitely meal planning, assessing your diet to see if you need something like a supplement, planning for both healthy eating, so healthy shopping, as well as movement and physical activity planning. And it's all individualised. So rather than receiving or downloading a meal plan from the internet that's for a broad range of people, a dietitian and/or exercise physiologist is trained to really assess you as an individual, look at your lifestyle, what sort of health conditions you might have, what sort of job you've got, and sort of tailor a program to you personally, as well as providing a lot of motivation as well. So I'm going to finish up talking there. Caroline, I see you've jumped back on. I really hope that you've enjoyed tonight's presentation, and I'll open it up for questions now.
Thank you so much, Kate, for your presentation tonight. I think we're almost out of time, but if anyone has questions, please email us at info@idfa.org.au. And if you would like to get in touch with Kate, we can organise for you to for that to be made available. I think Kate's presented a very comprehensive, well-balanced presentation tonight, which provides significant benefit for people with immune deficiency. So thank you so much, Kate, for engaging with us again.
Yeah, no problem.
In terms of our members who are on the call, in 3 weeks' time, we'll have another webinar talking about severe combined immune deficiency and the recent government decision to make that a routine screening test. So if you'd like more information, please contact us via our website. So I'd now like to thank you to Kate for your fabulous presentation, Kate. It's always
Thank
good to
you.
work with you.
Thanks for having
And
me.
yeah, and also to everyone who was online tonight, thank you and have a lovely evening.